Hey everybody, Scary here, and today I wanted to show you one of my trade routes, one of the biggest trade routes that I do to make money in Elite Dangerous, and it's actually not even that big of a trade route, so let's get right into it. You're going to want to go to Ashman Station, so let me show you where that is. We'll head over to our galaxy map. Just type in Ashman Station, or Ashman, whatever it is. You can see this is where we are. The system is Inupiat, I believe that's the way that's pronounced. And if we look at the system map, we'll see that Ashman Station is actually the first one here. There's quite a few suns, actually. There's a total of 4 suns in this system, 4 stars. And Ashman Station is right up here. Very, very close, in fact, 34.11 light seconds away. You can see we've got some other ships here, so if you want to get here, basically get into the solar system map, type in Ashman Station as I did there, and once you find it, go ahead and get into the system map and hit on select once you've selected Ashman Station. And this route is quite lucrative. It's been doing very, very well for me. As you can tell, or maybe you can't, I'm in a Lycon Type 7, which is the mid-size transport. And before we take off here, I'm just going to show you my fitting, just so you get a great idea of what you should expect to have fitted or invested into your ship before you do this. This is going to be taking me roughly 2 jumps to get there. So let me show you where I'm going. I'm going to search for something called Farkas Station. Sorry, Farkas Port, rather. And it's got a fairly unique name. This is in Yemanbin. God, these names are so hard to pronounce. Anyway, we're going to plot a route, but we are going to go ahead and actually select the planet. And this is what you should get into the habit of doing, because if you plot a route just to the system, once you get to the system, you'll still have to manually plot a route to the station. Whereas if you plot a route to the station beforehand, you'll be able to basically know where the station is when you come out of warp, or out of hyperspace as it's called in this game. So we're going to plot route to Farkas Port. And let's have a look at the ship just very quickly here. Like I mentioned, it's a Lycon Type 7. That is the mid-range transporter. There it is right there, the Type 7. Still a pretty decent sized ship. And we're going to go ahead into ship fitting. Outfitting, rather. So you notice I don't have any weapons on this ship. And the reason why is because I don't have time to fight. I haul cargo and I don't have any time to fight. And most of the time, my ship allows me to get out in time against most targets anyway. I don't think I've actually lost this ship once to an interdiction. Excuse me. Even though they do happen, I wouldn't say quite frequently, but they do happen at a decent interval, probably once every 3 or 4 round trips I get interdicted. And I'll give you some advice as to how to deal with that in a moment. So let's look at the rest of it here. We've got a heatsink launcher, chaff launcher on the other side. These are quite important. Chaff launcher more so if you want to get away from somebody, take less damage before you re-engage your frameshift drive. This is more for sneaking stuff into stations, and the way that works is you essentially go into silent running mode to try to avoid a scan, and you're able to actually reduce the amount of heat on your ship substantially by firing out a heatsink, which is where all the heat of your ship goes to. So once you've ejected a heatsink, your ship goes back down to 0% heat, and it's very unlikely that your signature is going to be detected and your ship going to be scanned at that point. Now, during a scan, and I'm not sure if this works or not, but during a scan you can hit your chaff launcher and it may interrupt the scan. I'm not sure, I haven't actually tried that myself. I know that the heatsink launcher works very well with silent running mode, but as you can see, the rest of the fit here is pretty basic, with nothing really being fitted aside from the heatsink and the chaff launcher. Moving on to the internals, probably the most important part of the ship. We go with lightweight alloys here. We want to keep our ship as light as possible to jump as far as possible. Our power plant is going to be A2. It's a pretty decent sized power plant that regenerates our systems as needed without going overboard and having a huge power plant that's going to hinder our ship in warp. And of course, thrusters are fairly important as well, but since we're not going to be engaging in any dogfights, hence having no weapons. The C5 thrusters are going to be more than enough to get us where we need to go. Probably the most important thing out of all of these is the A5 frameshift drive. Now, if you're wondering what these numbers are, the A, or the letter, is the class, and the number is the size of that particular module. So there are different module sizes that you can fit, and you can see that because the little 5, where you see the A5 here, the little 5 under the highlighted 5 is actually showing you how big that particular slot is, and the A and the 5 there, the 5 beside the A, is showing you how big the module you have fitted is. So in this case, we have as big a module as we're going to be able to fit into that particular slot, and the class of that module is A, and that is the most expensive part you'll probably have to buy for the ship. Save your money, it's very well worth it, it gets you very, very far. Life support, again, we don't need anything exuberant because we're not going to be engaging in any dogfights or being in any particularly dangerous areas, so C4 is more than enough. Power distributor, we're at D3, sensors at D3, fuel tank at C5, and then we've got cargo racks. We've got E6 for our 6 slots here, E5 for 5 slots, E4 for 4 slots, and, well, you can see the rest. Now, this, arguably, you could replace with another 2 tons of cargo, but in my honest opinion, 2 tons of cargo is not worth losing the amount of time you're going to lose trying to undock and dock this thing. Mostly dock. Undocking is more manual, but docking, especially in those cubed stations where the entrance can be very difficult to find. You'll notice in most situations where business is a factor that time is money, and, well, if you lose time, you lose money. So save time and make more money. And that's the best way to do that. Now moving on, I don't have really anything too special here, just a few of my decals, and that's about it. And that's going to do it for the fit of the ship. Now without further ado, let's go on to our trade route. So we're going to exit this area here, but not before we go to the market. So the commodities market is where we're going to be buying and selling, and we're going to be picking up some crop harvesters. Now I have about 228 tons worth of cargo. Your results may vary, and I opted to not have a shield generator just because of the fact that I have very specific ways that I get away from interdictions and I get out of danger. And yes, it is super immersion breaking, and I'll tell you about it as we're on the way. Hopefully we don't get interdicted, but you know what, it saves me a 1 million plus credit rebuy of the ship. Actually, let me see what my rebuy is on this ship. A rebuy is essentially the amount of money you'd have to pay to the insurance company to replace your ship with all fitted modules. Let's have a look. Sorry, I was looking at the wrong spot. There we go. Yes, the rebuy of my ship is 1.2 million credits, so it's quite a substantial number. As you can see, we do have well over that at nearly 16 million after buying all those crop harvesters or whatever they are. But nevertheless, we don't want to pay 1.2 million to replace our ship, and the vigilance that you're going to have on the way around your trade route is what's going to essentially help you avoid those problems. So here we go. We've got a chaff launcher on our main fire and our heatsink launcher on the primary fire. That's pretty standard, especially if you don't have any weapons, and we are good to go. Let's hit exit. We're fully fueled and we can launch our ship. So with my current configuration of this ship, I'm able to get to Farkas Port in about 2 jumps, which is pretty good. It takes me usually about 5.5 to 6 minutes to get there, and then another 5.5 to 6 minutes to get back. So roughly 12 minutes, and that usually yields me about, well, I haven't played this for a little while now, but that usually yielded me about 700 to 750,000 credits per round trip of about 10 to 12 minutes. So not too bad at all.
Landing gear retracted.
I'm going to retract our landing gear here very carefully, get out of this area. The ship is kind of tall, and you have to kind of keep in mind that the majority of your ship is above you. So you want to keep that in mind as you're flying through the gate here. Increase the speed a little bit. Hopefully don't bump the ship on the way out. There we go. Beautiful. And yes, it is quite dangerous to be flying. Oh, I guess we did hit something, or something hit us. And you can tell they're just 4% being taken off the hull just like that. So you do take a chance, you do take a risk of, whoop, too close to the station, of running without shields, but you do also have a much higher cargo capacity, which of course then yields more money at the end of the day. So if you can figure out a way to avoid interdictions altogether and get to where you're going safely, then yes, it's very well worth it. If you're a little bit more of a clumsy pilot, you don't have a lot of patience in getting out of stations, or you're susceptible to getting interdicted quite often, I would recommend using the shield generator. It will help you keep you safe. So anyway, we are ready to go. So my recommendations for staying or evading interdiction. Well, the best way to evade interdiction is not to get caught into interdiction at all. And in this game, for some stupid reason, let me see here.
4, 3.
For some stupid reason, whenever you jump into a new system, if there is any kind of pirate that's about to interdict you, he's going to send you a message. Excuse me. He's going to send you a message, and it's going to appear on the top left-hand corner of your screen, something like, oh, this is the ship I've been waiting for, etc. Now, you could just continue on your trip, but that basically is a warning sign to say, hey, you're about to be interdicted, so I hope you're ready. And instead of spending your time and effort and energy and losing a lot of time in trying to avoid an interdiction, or at least trying to evade one, the best thing to do is just to avoid it. So when you see those lines of text on the top left-hand corner of your screen, simply hit your escape button, log out to the main menu, log back in, and that will reset the spawn. I know that that is a very, very underhanded, so to speak. Oh. What the heck? Alright, well here, I'm gonna have to do this. That's really weird. I've never had that problem before. Wow, that is really weird. I'm gonna go to Farkas Port. Yeah. Plot route. That's very awkward.
Frameshift drive charging.
Looks like this is going to be 3 jumps for us this time. That was really weird. I think it's because I actually... Yeah, I know what happened. I planned the route with an empty cargo hold. You never want to do that, because then you have to adjust based on weight. So, anyway, like I was saying, the best way to avoid an interdiction is just not to get caught anyone. And I know that this is immersion breaking. Some of you will be saying something along the lines of, no, that's ridiculous, I'm not going to do that, it's breaking my immersion. Okay, in that case, get interdicted and lose, hundreds of thousands, if not millions, if you fail. And the way I see it is, most of the time, when my friends are not online, I usually play in solo mode because I don't really trust people. And I do play with private groups here and there, but essentially it doesn't really break the immersion that much for me. I try to get immersed in the game as much as I can, but when it comes to safety, I don't really cut any corners. If I need to log out, I'll just log out, not a big deal. Now, in terms of the frameshift drive in this ship, this is something else to keep in mind when you are being interdicted. If you do miss the opportunity to log out before that, you kind of got to keep in mind that you're going to have to get away somehow. So that's where your chaff launcher comes into play, and unfortunately you are going to have to wait for your drive to come off of cooldown and then recharge it and get out of there again. So if that's a problem for you as well, you can do exactly the same thing, and I've gotten away after failed interdictions here. Let me just set up a route again to Farkas Port, because I kind of messed it up. There we go. It is entirely possible to escape after a failed interdiction, although it does take quite a long time. So it is also entirely possible to log out after you've been interdicted. And usually what I do, if I fail an interdiction attempt or I don't see it coming, I typically just throttle down during the interdiction. That's if I don't miss it entirely. And speaking of missing, we're going to be missing this planet. That's brutal. I'm talking too much. I'm not paying attention to what's going on. So what you can do is you can slow down before you fail the interdiction. You can slow down, throttle all the way down, and submit to the interdiction. And as soon as you submit to the interdiction, you throttle back up, you pop your chaff, go full speed, and you log the hell out. Now again, immersion breaking, I know, but at the cost of a ship like this. I mean, if you have a Sidewinder, it's probably not a big deal. You'll get another Sidewinder. If you have a Cobra, or even a Viper, or a Hauler, or an Adder, or any of those ships that are really not that expensive, it's not a big deal. If you lose your ship, you lose your ship. You can either choose to pay a small amount of money to get it back, or you can just accept a Sidewinder for free. Now, that being said, once you get a larger ship like this, and you've farmed literally weeks, if not months, to get a certain ship that you like, you don't even want to go through paying for the insurance bill to get it back. So the best way to avoid that is just not to lose your ship at all. And in this case, unfortunately, there are some tricks that you can use that are a little bit immersion breaking, but they do work, and they are very good at making sure that you don't lose your ship. So even though I don't run any shields, I have failed several interdictions, and I've made it out of all of them simply by just submitting to the interdiction, throttling all the way down, submitting to the interdiction, throttling up, hitting my chaff, and then logging out. Now mind you, there is a 15-second logout timer, but most of the time that chaff will last much longer than the 15 seconds you need to log out. It'll be much harder for them to hit you, especially since enemies typically use gimbaled weapons. NPCs typically use gimbaled weapons most of the time, and the chaff will throw those gimbaled weapons off quite a bit. So it'll make them a lot more difficult to hit you, especially if you're going fairly quickly at a decent pace. And they're going to have to try and figure out where they are as well as soon as the interdiction is out, because they're not going to be directly behind you. They are put out of their supercruise just as quickly as you are. And when that happens, that is if you don't submit to the interdiction, then both of you are ripped out of supercruise and your ship just kind of goes all over the place and you have to reorient yourself. So especially if you are failing the interdiction, you do have a little bit more time to react, but if you're submitting to the interdiction, make sure that if you want to get away and you want to use this method that I'm talking about, make sure to throttle down, submit to the interdiction, and then throttle up immediately afterwards, pop your chaff, and just proceed to log out immediately. You gotta love this classical music docking here with this automatic docking computer. It's fantastic. So this is going to be our first leg of the trip complete, and I didn't want to really cut anything here because I want you guys to see just how quickly you can do this. And of course you can do it a lot quicker if you're not like me and trying to demonstrate and talk at the same time and get slowed down by it. So here we are docked. Cool little trick there is as soon as you come down, hit enter hangar before you go back up into station services. And the reason why you want to do that is because it puts you into the hangar, which is halfway of what you need to do in order to get out of the station. So by the time you're ready to get out and you want to undock, it's not going to take up your time in bringing you down, turning you around, and all that. So this does save a little bit of time, but you do have to be fairly quick in order to really take advantage of it. And I'm making a terrible example. So we are making about 116,000 credits profit here. This is not much. The profit is going to be on the way back. So we're going to go up to slavery, and we're going to pick up some Imperial slaves. Now, if you are in Imperial space, Imperial slaves are not the same as slaves. And we're going to pay about 3 million here to get these slaves. Imperial slaves are not the same as slaves. I don't know if you guys want to actually read this part here, this little area here. Imperial slaves are not the same as slaves. Regular slaves are illegal everywhere. Imperial slaves are legal in Imperial space, and the reason why is because it's just part of their culture. It's been part of their culture for a very long time. As you can see there, they're most of the time willing to submit into slavery for a fixed period of time as opposed to living with a debt. So that is just part of the empire and how their society works, and that's why in Empire space, Empire slaves are legal. So we're going to go ahead and undock. And as you can see now, we're already in the hangar. We're being brought out and we'll be ready to go, as opposed to being brought back into the hangar and then having to come back out and waste time undocking. So that's a good thing to do. It's not going to respond right away when you, as soon as you land, when you hit enter hangar, but it does cue the action. So when you do hit the hangar, or the go into the hangar button there, or enter hangar button, even though it doesn't process right away, it does prioritize it. So as soon as you're fully grounded, it will actually pull you into the hangar. That's a good way to save a little bit of time. Alright, so now we're out. Our ship is repaired and we can head back. Wow, that was pretty close. We almost hit that guy. And I noticed sometimes it's really, really silly where you're trying to get out of a station and somebody runs into you and you get the penalty. So that has happened a few times, but you know what, guys? I was very worried about not running any shield generators, but it's been very lucrative and very profitable for me. And it's been fairly safe as well. As long as you can react quickly and you know what you're doing, it's relatively safe to run without shields. But again, it's up to you. That's totally your prerogative if you want to run with shields, because you tend to run into things, or maybe you fly with a mouse and keyboard, who knows. There could be a variety of different reasons, but nevertheless. What the heck is that? Oh, I guess that's just part of the station. Shit, we're gonna have to go this way. This usually doesn't take this long. Maybe I just took a wrong turn out of the station. Oh, we're not mass locked anymore. Looks like.
Frameshift drive charging.
Oh, now we are mass locked. Shit. Alright, well, we're gonna have to continue to boost out of here. That's really weird. Usually when I get out of the station like this, I don't have any problems, but... What the hell is going on? How are we still here? I've been boosting this entire time. Maybe I'm just going around the station. Okay, you know what? Let's just go in a straight line. And get out of mass lock. This is the thing. I've been talking and not paying attention. It's ridiculous. There we go.
Frameshift drive charging.
We can start to get into Super Cruise, and then when we find our destination,
One. Engage.
we'll be able to get into hyperspace. So there we go. And find our waypoint. Oh, don't tell me. I know what I did wrong. Here I am doing a tutorial. I can't even do this right myself. Okay, so usually what I do is while my computer is auto-docking, I do this. I set the route for the next station. Unfortunately, I was too busy talking while my computer was docking, and I didn't do that, which is why I was circling the station. So, sorry for that, and let me just do this. Perfect. Alright, so now we're good. And that explains why we were going in a whole fucking circle following the station all the way around. So there we go. Oh, you gotta be kidding me. Come on, this is the worst possible time for this to be happening. Alright, Ashman Station. I wonder what the problem is here. Plot route. Let's go back and see if that affected it. Okay, that should be fine. We're looking at 2 jumps, right? Yeah, only 2 jumps. Okay, there we go.
Frameshift drive charging.
So now we're gonna head back to Ashman Station, and we're gonna sell these slaves. This is where we really have to be vigilant, guys, because essentially the cargo that we have on board right now is extremely valuable. And if we lose that, we're basically out about, well, 3 million for the cargo and another 1.2 for the ship. So we don't want to be out 4.2 million, so we have to be very careful. Now when you're in hyperspace, as soon as you jump out, reduce your throttle. And that tip saved me many a ship, because what ends up happening is the planets in this game, just like in real life, have a gravitational pull. That includes the stars.
Frameshift drive
So if you're coming out of hyperspace and you're going straight at a star, and you're at full speed and accelerating, it's going to be problematic for you. Your ship is going to go into overheating, especially if you're trying to get out and charge up your frameshift drive. It's going to overheat your ship even more. So it's a good idea to avoid that if you can. So thankfully, we haven't been interdicted yet. Hopefully we don't get interdicted. But if we do, I'll show you what to do, so no worries. So just making our second jump here, throttle down just before we get out of hyperspace. Turn away from the star, throttle back up. And just follow your compass to your destination. Now in this case, there are 2 suns here, so you're not just seeing double. And we'll slow down a little bit so we don't pass it this time. The other thing to keep in mind is, for interdictions anyway, keep an eye on your 3D radar. It's going to take a little bit of time to get used to it, but as soon as you do, you'll be able to know essentially where everybody around you is and whether they're catching up to you or not. If they're catching up to you and they're coming from behind you, there's a good chance there's an interdiction. You might miss what the guy has to say to you before he interdicts you. You might see him coming before he has to say anything at all. So that could be an indicator that you may be getting interdicted very soon. And in this case, we don't have anybody behind us, which is good news. So we've made the round trip essentially without being interdicted, without being bothered at all. Of course, the only problem is being my own, where I failed to set the destination while my computer was docking. And sort of that is another option for you to do to save time is when you do have the docking computer installed, you're able to let that handle docking within 7.5 kilometers of a station while you plot your trip for the next leg of your trip. So that's very, very important. Saves a lot of time, and once you get good at it, you can do this run in about 5 minutes or less. Maybe 6 minutes or less. So usually when I get to a station, I boost once. I go over to request docking, make sure I'm within 7.5 kilometers. I am.
Docking request granted.
Docking request granted, so we're going to throttle down, the computer's going to take over. And then, while that's happening, we're going to go back into our galaxy map. Farkas port. And we're going to go into the system map. And that is the wrong one.
Scan
Port.
detected.
Come on. There we go. Scan detected, so our ship is just approaching the station right now. We've got lots of time. Farkas port is here. I'm going to set the destination and exit. And we're not even in the station yet. So you've got lots of time to do this. Saves you a lot of time. Your computer is going to find the entrance of the station for you, especially in this type of station. This station here, these cube stations, can be very difficult, especially for new pilots to find the entrance for. So having a standard docking computer in every ship, I would highly recommend it. It's not worth the 2 tons there and 2 tons back. You're literally saving yourself. You know what? You'd probably be making around 7,000 credits. If you've got the same setup as me, you'd be making about 7,000 credits more by omitting the computer and going with 2 tons of cargo. Unfortunately, the amount of time that you'd be wasting, you'd be losing tens of thousands of credits in the meantime. So trying to make 7,000 credits at the expense of losing tens of thousands is just not worth it. Time is very, very valuable.
Successful. Engines
And you can do a lot of
disengaged.
things in the meantime while your computer is landing your ship. So, again, we're going to do that. We're going to hit enter hangar as we go into our system services here, or station services. Repair, refuel, do whatever we need to do. We'll go over to the market, head back down. And the slaves are right here. And we're making 3,063 credits, guys, per slave. And you remember how many slaves we have, right? Look at this. 698. That's actually probably one of the highest single transactions I've ever done. I'm going to go and actually check that out because I think that is literally the highest transaction I have ever made. Let's go to finance. We're sitting at 17 million now, guys. We started at what? Started at 15.8 after buying a bunch of crop harvesters. Now we're at 17.1. And that could be a 10-12 minute trip. So really, really good. Current assets are sitting at 52.9 million, so very close. If I were to sell everything I have, I could almost buy a Python. Almost. And let's go over to smuggling, trading. Highest single transaction was what you just witnessed, 698,364. For 6 minutes of time, guys. Pretty good. So, I hope you enjoyed this video. Hope it was illuminating for you. I know I made a couple of mistakes. Sorry about that. Tends to happen when I multitask. I don't multitask very well, guys. I'm going to be honest with you. So, anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. If this was helpful for you, make sure to subscribe because I do these kinds of videos all the time. Not every day, mind you, because I do have a fairly busy schedule. But if there is something that you'd like to see, by all means, let me know. And especially if you're a subscriber, I will make you that video. So, or I'll do the best that I can anyway. But make sure to subscribe. Lots of cool videos here on the channel. Go check out the rest of them. I'll try to keep the content coming. Let me know what you like. Make sure to leave a like as well. If you didn't like the video, let me know why not. But I don't see how you couldn't like making over 800,000 almost actually credits every 12 minutes. So I really hope you enjoyed it, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.